Hello everybody, this is Mithril Zenith, and today let's talk about why Sophia is considered the worst unit in Fire Emblem. Now, there are a couple units that have the dubious honor of being called some of the worst units in Fire Emblem, but Sophia is pretty much agreed upon to be the very worst unit in all of Fire Emblem. The only thing going for her in some people's minds are the guiding ring that she can get in the desert, but some people liken that to, well, if it just started in your starting inventory, would you count it for her? Whatever. I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to talk about why Sophia is bad, why other units that are in similar situations to Sophia aren't nearly as bad as her, and what, if anything, could potentially be done to fix her or make her at least worth using. Big shoutouts to C2 Pikali, who is the first member of the Laguz Guard. YouTube channel memberships begin at less than $1 a month. If you have the discretionary income to, I would really appreciate your support. If not, that's fine. Just keep watching and liking the videos. Who is Sophia? What is the point? Sophia is a unit in Fire Emblem 6. You get her in the Desert Chapter, Chapter 14. You get her automatically from turn 1, she just joins your team right away. She's a level 1 shaman. In this game you have 3 dark magic users. You have her, you have Ray, and you have Nimue. Now Ray, you get 2 chapters earlier, he starts at level 12 with these stats. Obviously better stats than Sophia. Well, what are their growths like? Sophia's growths are not really that good. They are somewhat decent for... Actually, I can't even say that. They're somewhat decent for FE6 standards. She has a good magic growth. That's about it. And resistance, I guess, but how much does that really matter? Let's talk about it. Sophia is the latest joining lowest level unit in Fire Emblem 6. I think she's the last unpromoted unit to join if you don't count Fa. That sounds right. I'm pretty sure that's correct. If not, then she's like the second. Oh wait, no, Zeus. Yeah, Zeus joins. But he at least has some levels on him. She is very fragile, she is very slow, and she is very inaccurate. And of those 3 things, the inaccuracy, the low skill, and inaccurate weapons are probably the worst factor of her. Now this might sound a little bit weird, like, okay, well why is accuracy such a big deal? Well, this is Fire Emblem 6, enemies have an actual luck stat, enemies are fairly evasive, and having 2 base skill and the most accurate tome, the most accurate weapon you're able to use, having a base hit of 70 doesn't do you any favors. Mages in Fire Emblem, even low-leveled late-joining mages, have a niche. They have use, they have potential. They are generally fragile, being mages. They start slow because they start really low-leveled, and they take a lot of experience to level up. But generally, they're easy to train because they're mages. They have access to accurate tomes. They deal damage based on res instead of defense, so they can deal more damage more effectively. So they can snipe kills pretty easily, and from safety, having that choice of 1 to 2 range, so they can fight either archers or foot soldiers or whoever relatively safely, getting those pick-off kills, and if they miss, no big deal. Well, this is Fire Emblem 6. There are a lot more enemies in packs. Enemies are stronger. It's harder to just kind of leave 1 or 2 alive for your mage to pick off. And even when you do so, with the high likelihood that Sophia will miss, she's rarely going to be getting the kills you want to feed her. And if she can't get kills as soon as you get her, she is going to very quickly be unable to get kills later on, as enemies just get faster, have higher resistance, and be more evasive, and harder to weaken without killing. Sophia is so many bad traits packaged up into one. But let's take them down. She's fragile and relatively slow. Well, the same can be said about Lilina. Lilina has some frailty. As you can see, her speed is 35%, her hit points is 45%, and she starts at 16 HP and 4 speed. But she joins in Chapter 8. She has a pretty reasonable time getting trained up because you can attack. There's a lot of stationary enemies in 8X, the fire map, for you to train her on. There are a couple of stationary armor knights you can train her on. You can boss abuse her pretty easily. If you want to use Lilina, you can. Plus, she has access to the Fire Tome. The Fire Tome being a 100 accuracy weapon. I think it's the most accurate weapon in Fire Emblem 6. And her base skill is 5. So she naturally will have like 80 to 90% hit rates on most enemies that aren't in cover, and even like 60 to 70% on enemies that are. And will be dealing somewhat reasonable damage considering her magic is quite high and has a very high growth for the game. She might slow down, she might not double, she might get doubled, and she might get one-shot by enemies in the late game, but she's easy to train and easy to use, relatively speaking. Now, we come over to Ray, the counterpart shaman. He's also stuck to Flux's most accurate weapon. Well, he also has 9 base skill, 12 base magic, and 9 base speed, so he's not super slow. He's slowed down by his tome, obviously, but he's not terribly slow. He's not super inaccurate. He hits pretty hard when he does, and he's level 12. You can easily just Guiding Ring promote him if you have one lying around, and that'll give him pretty insane promotion buffs. He's not too hard to use. Is he the best mage? I don't know. I don't think anyone would call him the best mage, but he's not that hard to use. Also, is this just like super loud to anyone else? I'll turn it down. So yeah, Ray, not the same problems. Lilina, similar problems, but has other advantages. Let's go to someone else, cross games. Let's talk about someone like Nino. Well, Nino joins as a level 5 mage. Has 11 speed and 8 skill, and yes, she starts with an L-Fire Tome, but she can easily switch over to a more accurate Fire Tome. She has very good growth rates, much better than Sophia's, in pretty much every regard. She's only really available for like 3 chapters, but I would say Nino is a better unit just because she's far more usable if you want to try to use her. And those promotion bonuses to Sage are still not bad. They might not be as obscene as these promotion bonuses to Druid that Sophia gets, but good luck actually getting her the 9 levels needed to promote. At least Nino only needs 5. Heck, even if you do manage to level her up, she has 40% skill and 30% speed. That is not going up very quickly at all. And then let's take a look back to historically one of the worst archetype setters, Miranda, who's kind of known for being a mage that's inaccurate and kind of sucks and doesn't really do much. Well, she joins in B route, chapter 16. You have to go through you have to reach the center of the teleportation forest. She has 7 magic and 2 skill. Granted, the game has caps of 20, and stats can be very easily fixed with use of various scrolls. But if we take a look at the Fire Tome in Thracia, we'll see that the Fire Tome, it only has 70 accuracy. Okay, so Miranda is a more similar unit. However, Miranda at least has something going for her. She has the scrolls, so if she levels up, it's easy to rig her levels. Or not even rig. She's in a game with lower caps, and so her 7 magic is not that, nearly as far behind the curve. She has 8 speed, so she actually has somewhat arguably okay speed. And she has pretty good growths even just on her own. Plus she has the Wrath skill. If ever you manage to get her to survive a hit, she will counter back with an automatic crit. pretty good stuff, pretty fun stuff. And then she promotes to Mage Knight, getting Kanto on a horse and all that fun stuff. So Miranda arguably is somewhat worth training. Arguably. It's a tough case to argue, I'll be honest. Miranda is still in the bottom set of units. But Miranda, in my opinion, is still much better than Sophia. So, yes, she's fragile. That's nothing new. She is really low level. That's nothing new, even though she is, like, kind of by far the lowest level of anyone. She has a somewhat unique spell type in Dark Magic, but she actually shares that with 3 other units, whereas someone like Kanos only has technically Athos that he shares it with. Oh yes, there's one other unit I wanted to compare to, and that is Ewan. And Ewan is a level 1 pupil, a trainee unit. He has these stats. And I would argue Ewan is still easier to use and train than Sophia. And Ewan, you get something more notable if you train him. First of all, again, he has the Fire Tome for that early game accuracy. He can then switch over to Shaman if you want a Dark Mage, and loses basically nothing because that Fire Tome's accuracy pulls him out of the early game where it's really hard to hit. And by that point, also in Fire Emblem 8, the Flux Tome has 80 base accuracy instead of 70, which helps quite a bit. That's just a Binding Blade being less accurate than everyone else game. Ewan then can become any other of the mages, meaning you can have, you can use him as a second summoner, you can use him as a second or third Mage Knight, you can use him as yet another Sage, you can use him as a second potential Druid. You could even bring him into Pupil 3rd class and have all 3 of the magic types if you've completed both routes of the game, if you want to. Ewan, as a trainee unit with this much potential options, does provide something fun for you if you want to branch out, if you want to, bring him in. He's a more unique unit and thus is more notable and provides more reason to use him over Sophia. Sophia just kind of exists, and despite being one of the units, being a half-dragon, being a cameo in FE7, despite being this kind of not even super well-known, but somewhat well-known unit in the lore, somewhat well-known character in the story, she is just not good. And primarily, I feel like her lack of accuracy, her low skill, and lack of an accurate weapon option are the biggest hindrances to her. So if you wanted to fix her without going the Project Ember route and breaking absolutely everything, if you wanted to just fix Sophia and that's it, what would you do? Honestly, make her a regular mage. I know, it takes away from her uniqueness. But if you make her a regular mage, she has Fire Tome access, which instantly improves her hit rate by 30 points. That takes, the roughly 50% odds that she gets on her joining map to be 80%, which is a lot more reliable. That takes, the 40s to 30s that she's facing against the faster enemies of future chapters to 60 and 70, which is still somewhat reliable, more often than not. Yes, you lose some of the uniqueness of having her be a shaman. You lose the potential most damaging attack in the game with Apocalypse on a maxed out Sophia Druid with 5 attack boosting support partners. But you get a technically more usable unit. Would she still be a bad unit? Yes, she would still be terrible. No one in their right mind who's playing seriously would want to use her. But she would be usable. And even if a unit's bad, they still gotta pass that usability bar. And the reason why Sophia, in my mind, is the worst unit in Fire Emblem, she does not become usable. You have to bend over backwards farther than any other unit in the game just to have her miss and not be able to kill units to get levels anyway. She is so bad. And speaking of supports, because I mentioned it, does she have supports that fix her accuracy? Technically, yes, but here are her support partners. Roy, who probably is already maxed out with other support partners. Ray, who... You're using Sophia, are you just wanting to have an army full of dark mages? If so, then Ray. Igren, who you get the chapter after, technically 2 chapters if you play the water temple. Faye, who has 30 attacks across the entirety of her existence. And Nime, again, dark mages, shamans, and that only gives half hit. So you're waiting for many turns across several chapters to potentially get a total of plus 25 hit, only if she is next to Roy, Ray, Igren, or Faye, which is a very small list, and a list of units whom you are either probably not fielding constantly with Sophia, or whose support options have already been filled from the early game, because Roy supports with everyone. And everyone wants Roy's support, especially in the early game if you're doing like a hard mode playthrough and not caring about turn count. But let me know what your thoughts on Sophia are. Is she truly the worst unit in Fire Emblem? Is there a worse unit out there? Let me know who you think is the worst unit in Fire Emblem, and I might just tune over and review them. Kind of dissect why. Because this is not just saying, oh, Sophia bad. This is saying, here's all the reasons why Sophia is bad. And why I don't think that units like Nino or Ray or Ewan or Lilina are nearly as bad as she is. Thank you for watching. This is Mithril Zenith, signing out.